She thought she had hit the ultimate jackpot, a billionaire Arab fiancé, luxury at her fingertips, private jets, diamond rings, and a future dripping in gold. But what she didn't know was that the man she was about to marry had already discovered her dirty little secret. While she was busy dreaming about shopping sprees and first-class vacations, he was planning something far more sinister. She thought she was playing him, but in reality, she was the one being played. And on the biggest day of her life, just when she thought she had it all, he would deliver a revenge so brutal, so unexpected, that it would leave her begging for mercy. Because here's the thing about men like him. They don't just forgive betrayal, they erase it. She had spent months carefully weaving her web, pretending to be the perfect woman, soft-spoken, adoring, the kind of fiancé any man would be proud to show off. She played her role flawlessly, laughing at his jokes, admiring his traditions, and gazing at him with those wide, innocent eyes that hid nothing but pure greed. And Khalid? Oh, he was smitten. Or at least that's what she thought. From the moment he laid eyes on Emily, he had believed she was different. Unlike the women who only saw him as a walking bank account, she seemed genuine. She didn't just appreciate his wealth. She admired his mind, his ambition, his drive. At least that's what she wanted him to believe. And for a while he did. He had fallen for her charm, the way she made him feel like the most powerful man in the world. He had pictured a future with her, one filled with love, passion, and loyalty. So when he proposed, slipping a ring onto her delicate finger, he had done so with the belief that she was his forever. But forever was a funny thing, because while he was planning their future, she was planning something else entirely. Late at night, when Khalid was away handling business, Emily was whispering sweet nothings to another man. A man who had no wealth, no power, just an agenda that aligned with hers. Together they laughed at Khalid's generosity, mocking his blind devotion. They made plans, real plans, to secure her future. A future where Khalid's wealth would soon belong to her. She wasn't in love with Khalid. She was in love with his billions. And what she didn't know was that Khalid had finally seen through the mask. It had started with little things. A conversation cut short when he entered the room. A text message hidden too quickly. The way she spoke about their upcoming wedding, always emphasizing the extravagant lifestyle she was about to secure. At first, he ignored the signs. Love does that to a man. It blinds him, makes him foolish, makes him believe in illusions. But when a trusted friend came forward with undeniable proof, photos, messages, and a recording of Emily laughing about how she'd hit the jackpot and how Khalid was too stupid to see it, the illusion shattered. The pain was sharp, a blade twisting deep in his gut. He had loved this woman, trusted her, given her everything, and she had played him for a fool. But if she thought he was just going to walk away quietly, she was mistaken. Because Khalid was not the kind of man you betrayed and got away with it. He was the kind of man who settled scores. And this time, he wouldn't just break her heart. He'd break everything she ever wanted. So he did what any man of power would do. He smiled. He continued the engagement as if nothing had changed. He showered her with gifts, spoke of their future, and let her believe she had won. All while meticulously crafting the perfect revenge. First, he arranged for a special prenup, one that she unknowingly signed, forfeiting any claim to his wealth the moment she said, "I do." Then he set the stage for the ultimate betrayal, a lavish destination wedding, extravagant, over the top, everything she had ever dreamed of. Hundreds of guests, a fairy tale venue, and cameras capturing every moment. And then the pièce de résistance. On the night before the wedding, he surprised her with a wedding gift, a private yacht, a romantic dinner, the soft glow of the city lights reflecting off the water. It was perfect, until it wasn't. Because as the champagne flowed and Emily leaned in, smug with victory, Khalid leaned back and smiled. A slow, knowing smile that sent a chill down her spine. "I know," he whispered. Her heart stopped. The air around her thickened, suffocating. She tried to laugh, to play it off, but the look in his eyes told her. This wasn't a joke. "I know everything, Emily." Her breath hitched. And then the nightmare began. The yacht suddenly lurched, the engine cutting out. The lights flickered. The sound of waves crashing against the boat filled the silence. Khalid, what's going on? She stammered, her voice trembling. But he didn't answer. Instead, he stood, towering over her, his face unreadable. You thought you could betray me? He murmured, his voice eerily calm. You thought I wouldn't find out. Emily scrambled to stand, her mind racing. She was trapped, in the middle of the ocean, with a man who had every reason to hate her. And then, the worst happened. Khalid reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, gleaming object. A knife? A key? Her mind couldn't process it fast enough. Khalid, please, let's talk about this, she pleaded, her hands shaking. He took a slow step toward her, tilting his head. Talk? He echoed. That's funny, because I don't recall you wanting to talk when you were plotting to take everything from me. Emily's pulse pounded. Was this it? Was this how it ended? She turned, ready to run. Where, she didn't know. But before she could take a step, Khalid's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. Sit down. She froze. Tears welled in her eyes as she lowered herself back onto the chair, her body trembling. And then, he laughed, a low, dark chuckle that sent ice through her veins. Oh, Emily, he sighed, shaking his head. You really thought I was going to kill you. She gasped, staring at him, wide-eyed. What? She whispered. Khalid leaned in, his face inches from hers. No, darling, he murmured. I'm not a murderer, but I am a man who doesn't forgive. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and suddenly, her own voice filled the air. A recording, her voice, laughing, mocking, plotting. Emily's world shattered. And then, her phone buzzed. She snatched it up, her hands trembling. Her bank account, zero. Her credit cards, declined. Everything, gone. Khalid smirked. Consider it my wedding gift to you, he said, stepping back. A fresh start, without my money. Emily's breath came in short, panicked gasps. No, she whimpered. No, you can't. I already did. And with that, Khalid turned, walking away, leaving her alone on the yacht, her dreams crumbling around her. Because in the end, she wasn't the one who won. She was the one who lost everything. As Khalid stepped off the yacht, the cool night breeze swept over him, carrying away the last remnants of his foolish love. Behind him, Emily sat frozen, staring at her phone screen, her vision blurred by tears. Her hands trembled as she desperately tried to refresh her bank app, hoping, praying that it was some kind of glitch. But it wasn't. Her world had just been ripped apart in a matter of seconds. Gone were the millions she had secretly hoped to steal. Gone was the life of luxury she had spent months fantasizing about. Gone was the future she thought was guaranteed. And worse, she had no way out. Khalid, please, she stammered, her voice breaking as she forced herself to stand. We can fix this. It was just a mistake. I didn't mean any of it. Her words came out rushed, desperate. But Khalid didn't even glance back. He was already stepping onto the dock, his bodyguards flanking him. One of them turned to Emily and gestured toward a small motorboat tied to the side. This will take you back to shore, he said coldly. Emily's heart pounded against her ribs. That's it? He's just going to leave me here? Just like that? No screaming, no second chances, no dramatic final plea? No! She suddenly shrieked, throwing her phone down and lunging forward. You don't get to do this to me. I was supposed to have everything. Her outburst echoed into the night, but Khalid barely reacted. If anything, he looked amused. He turned slightly, finally meeting her eyes. And what she saw there sent a chill straight through her bones. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hatred. It was indifference. You were never supposed to have anything, he said calmly. You just thought you could steal it. Emily's knees wobbled. She had expected him to be furious, to lash out, maybe even beg her to stay. That's what men always did when they lost someone as beautiful as her. But Khalid had already erased her from his life. She had been nothing more than a lesson to him. The bodyguard gestured again toward the boat. Get in. Emily looked back at the yacht, At the endless black sea stretching behind it, there was nowhere to run. With a defeated sob, she climbed into the motorboat, her designer dress dragging in the water. The engine roared to life, and slowly, painfully, she was carried away. Away from the life she had almost stolen, away from the man who had outplayed her at her own game. As she drifted toward the shore, she kept telling herself that this wasn't over, that she could find a way back into Khalid's good graces. Maybe I can explain. Maybe I can make him forgive me. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was done. She had played the game, and she had lost. By the time she reached the shore, the sun was beginning to rise, casting a golden glow over the city. Emily staggered onto the dock, her heels clicking weakly against the wood, her hair a tangled mess from the wind. And then she saw them, the headlines. Her face was everywhere. Exposed, billionaire groom reveals fiancé's betrayal in front of guests. Arab tycoon's brutal revenge on his gold-digging bride. Watch shocking video of woman's greedy scheme unveiled. Her breath caught in her throat as she clicked on one of the links. A video, leaked from inside the yacht. Her own voice played back at her. Oh please, Khalid's just a means to an end. Once I marry him, half of his money is mine. The world had heard everything, and just like that, her reputation was destroyed. The elite circles she had once dreamed of joining, closed forever. The rich, powerful men she had hoped to manipulate next, they would never trust her now. She had been canceled. Emily's hands clenched into fists as she turned her gaze back toward the sea, toward the life she had almost had. And somewhere, standing high above in his glass-walled penthouse, Khalid watched it all unfold. With a slow sip of his coffee, he smirked. Justice had been served, and he would never have to think about her again. Days passed, but the aftermath of Khalid's revenge was far from over. The tabloids didn't let up. Her name, once whispered in awe by socialites and elites, now became a punchline in every conversation. Emily's social media exploded with hate comments and public shaming. People who once adored her for her beauty now mocked her for her blatant manipulation. Emily couldn't escape the glare of public judgment. The stories about her betrayal spread like wildfire, turning her into the symbol of every gold-digging woman's worst reputation. Her once promising career as an influencer was in ruins. Deals with top brands vanished, sponsors dropped her. With every notification she received, a fresh wound was carved into her pride. What hurt the most wasn't the loss of fame, though. It was the loss of respect. She tried to reach out to Khalid. She sent him dozens of messages, pleading for forgiveness, begging for a second chance. But Khalid wasn't the type to waste a second on people who didn't deserve his time. He didn't read a single one. Meanwhile, Khalid's life moved forward, untouched by the chaos he'd left behind. In the weeks following the wedding that never was, Khalid had his hands full, making deals, expanding his empire, and enjoying the fruits of his hard work. But despite the public image of a heartless man, something inside him had shifted. He had learned a valuable lesson. Betrayal, he realized, wasn't just about losing someone you loved. It was about losing your trust in people. The world now saw him as a man who didn't let anyone walk all over him, and that made him even more powerful. He had a reputation that spoke louder than words, and that reputation brought him more business deals, more opportunities, and more influence. And in the midst of all that power, he still couldn't help but think of the woman who had almost destroyed his life. Not with anger or hate, but with a sense of finality. Emily was gone. And while she had been the one chasing after him for his wealth, it was Khalid who had walked away with the most valuable thing of all: control. As for Emily, she had hit rock bottom. She moved into a small apartment, away from the glitz and glamour she had once taken for granted. Her days were spent hiding from the world, scrolling through her social media feed, seeing how quickly the world had forgotten her. She could barely look at herself in the mirror anymore. And the phone calls came in. Friends, colleagues, ex-lover after ex-lover, all offering apologies, all pretending to care. But deep down, Emily knew. None of them were truly there for her. One night, she sat on her couch, staring at the reflection of her broken life. She thought back to Khalid, the way he had looked at her with cold indifference as she begged for mercy. I need him back, she thought, feeling the desperate ache in her chest. I need him to forgive me. She picked up her phone and called the one person who could help her find a way back into Khalid's world. His childhood friend, the only person Khalid still kept in touch with. The line rang. "Hello? I need help," Emily's voice cracked, betraying her vulnerability. I, I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Please, can you talk to Khalid for me? Tell him I'll do anything to make things right." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, his voice came through, stern but sympathetic. "I can't fix this for you, Emily. You burned that bridge." "But I'm nothing without him," she pleaded. "I need his forgiveness. Please, you don't understand. I can't survive without his help." The friend sighed heavily. "You don't get it, do you? Khalid isn't the kind of man who forgives. Once you've shown him who you are, there's no going back. He doesn't need you, Emily. He doesn't need anyone." The finality in his words hit Emily like a cold slap. It was true. Khalid didn't need her. He didn't need anyone. He had everything he wanted, and the one thing she had once tried to take from him, he had locked away for good. Her world crumbled further. Back at Khalid's penthouse, life continued at full speed. But despite his outward confidence, there was an emptiness inside. He had won, yes, but the victory didn't feel as sweet as he had expected. He could hear the whispers of those who had tried to warn him about Emily's greed. But there was something in the back of his mind, something that gnawed at him when he allowed himself to reflect. Why had he ever fallen for her in the first place? He shook the thought away. Khalid had done what needed to be done. He had taken control, and in doing so, he had ensured no one could ever take advantage of him again. He learned that power wasn't about how much you owned, but how little you needed anyone else. As he sat on the balcony of his penthouse overlooking the city, he felt the full weight of his decisions. He didn't regret his actions, but he also realized that in some way, he had freed himself not only from Emily, but from a part of himself that was too trusting, too hopeful, and that was enough. 1 month later, Emily tried one last desperate attempt to get back into the Millionaire's world. She sent Khalid a letter, not an email or a text, but a physical letter, something tangible that would speak volumes about her desperation. In it, she wrote, "I never loved you for your money. I loved you for who you were. Please don't let me end up alone." She signed it with her name, her trembling hand barely able to write through the tears. But Khalid didn't respond. Not with words, instead, he sent a package back. Inside, there was a single item, her engagement ring. With a note attached, "It's time for you to find your own way." And just like that, the final chapter in Emily's life with Khalid was closed. She was alone,